Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So a lot of you have asked about my relationship with Greg, who you guys have scared him off now and he's not sitting in the back of my video. Anyway, I want him to come on my channel and hopefully he will in the future, but we have to let him warm up to the idea. But my relationship with him is unique, to say the least. We've been through a lot. We've been through addiction, infidelity, arrest, car accident, a lawsuit, a divorce, more infidelity, and recovery. And we've managed to stay together and stay in love. I say that like I'm questioning it. No, we definitely have stayed in love. I love him a lot. He's my best friend, and it took us a very long time to get here. So I'm gonna rewind the clocks a little bit and take you back to 2007. It would have been March 2007 when I first met him, and I actually just found pictures of the first night that we met. I will make sure to include them here. Don't we look like little babies? Anyway, I knew who he was and he knew who I was. We ran in the same circle of friends, and we had met one time and never actually were introduced. So he is very short. Very short. He's my size, which doesn't bother me at all, but his ex-girlfriend was super tall. So the first time I saw him, it was like this weird height difference, and I couldn't help but notice it, but I wasn't into him. It wasn't our time, so I just let it go. And it was St. Patrick's Day party at my friend Rick's house, and my friend Brent brought Greg to the party. And Brent and I have a long relationship. He's one of my really closest friends. So he brought Greg, and the moment I laid eyes on this little boy, I was in love. My teenage self was just so smitten, and I couldn't help it. And I knew from the moment I met him he was trouble, because the very first time I kissed him, it tasted like dope. But you couldn't tell me nothing back then. I was just so stupid and so hell-bent on doing my own thing. I thought I was invincible. Turns out I wasn't. But okay, so we quickly started dating. I had been seeing somebody else casually, and that ended real quick, and I started seeing Greg. And we did not take things slowly ever. I've never known the definition of taking things slowly personally, and I don't really think he has either. But we moved in together by May, and we got our own apartment, and we were in a car accident in Baltimore, going down to pick up drugs in the city, and he was on the phone with the dealer and making a left-hand turn, and this car came around the bend way too fast and T-boned us. I ended up getting a broken pelvis bone and fractured hip. And he ended up just walking away with some bruises. I was in the ICU for a little bit for head and chest trauma and transferred. I was down in, what was the hospital? Something like Sinai Hospital in Baltimore. I don't remember. But I was transferred back to my local hospital because I couldn't handle being away from my family. Like, being down in a hospital in Baltimore sucked. I didn't know anybody, and it was a drive, and it was quite a drive to get down there. I would say maybe 45 minutes, but I couldn't just have my family stop by and drop something off for me if I needed it. So I was in the hospital for a little over a week, and then had to go stay at my grandparents because our apartment was on the second floor. And during this time, little Greg he was bad. He was so bad to me the first time around. So I'm going to preface this with, I have no hard feelings towards him, and we have talked about all of this and worked through all of this. Side note, if you are in a relationship where someone treats you like this, don't stay. Greg knows I would say that 100 times over, because unless you're going to marry this person and put in the work to fix your relationship, it ain't worth it. It's not worth it. Infidelity pretty much ruins a relationship. Yeah, you can fix it, and it takes a lot of time, a lot of healing, a lot of therapy, a lot of conversations, a lot of pain, a lot of anger, a lot of fights, just a whole lot of shit. I would not recommend it at all. but we have actually overcome quite a few infidelities, to be quite honest, on both sides. So he was, one time I laugh because it's funny looking back because I know where we're at now, but like this shit is not funny, not at all. So I'm in the hospital and I'm all drugged up on morphine, having a morphine drip and whatever that sleeping pill is, not Ativan, Ambien. And I'm like losing my mind. Ambien makes me so crazy. And I called my mom and my sister and I was like, I don't know how I got this in my head, but I was like, Greg has another girl at my apartment. And I kept calling them over and over and over again at night until they went over to check. And they searched through my entire apartment and I swore up and down that there was another woman in there. How I knew, I don't know, because I was in the hospital and like didn't even have cell phones to communicate, and I was right. She was hiding in the attic. They didn't find her. He came clean about that later. That just kind of sets the tone for our relationship. Drugs, infidelity, unstable emotions. That really sums it up really well. So, like I mentioned in my other video, I maintained this image of stability by working, and then when I was in the car accident, I didn't have to work. I was just supposed to do physical therapy and do whatnot. I had a walker and then a cane for a very long time. In fact, on my 21st birthday, I went to the bar and had a cane. So yeah, that was cool. And I don't know. Greg and I spent a lot of time doing drugs, and most of our relationship was spent going down to the city to get drugs. At this point, things were relatively under control as it can be. We were still just snorting, and we were definitely addicted and definitely got dope sick when we didn't use daily. And I remember the first time that I felt like I was dope sick. I was at our apartment and he was at the old apartment that I was living at prior to getting this place with him. And he went back there with that other girl in front of all my friends and like my ex-roommates, and I was using a walker and I walked my ass across town because I was starting to have like a panic attack. And I could feel it, and I didn't feel good, and I didn't know what was going on. And I had never felt like this before, and it was terrible. And I got there and I walked my ass up to the second floor with a walker, mind you, looked this girl dead in the eyes and said, "I'm not going away. See ya." And he came home with me. I'm not really proud of that because honestly, like, we shouldn't have been together. We were so toxic. And she was a really great girl, and she was just kind of dealing with his shit too. So she unfortunately passed away last July from an overdose. So I hate talking bad about her, but we had buried the hatchet. And she at one point, so let me get back to the story. So Greg comes home with me and I'm freaking out, and his sister just got out of this place in Pittsburgh. I think it's called Abraxas, like a juvenile detention facility. And she's like, "Girl, you're dope sick." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "How often have you been using?" And I was like, "Well, like mostly every day," not even realizing that I could be fucking addicted. And I was. She's like, "Go do some dope." And I did it and I felt better. And at that point I was like, okay, so this is where I'm at. Kind of took note of my surroundings, who I was with, Greg, where I was at physically, like injured, broken, and that's kind of what I went with for the next couple weeks. So this girl, I know that Greg's gonna understand when I tell you all this stuff. So she was under the impression that she was gonna move into my apartment. I was gonna move out of my apartment and she could move in the apartment I paid for. But she got so mad when he eventually did call it off with her that she slit my tires and put meat under my car seat. So all 4 tires. So I was going on a trip to South Carolina. And like I said, I could take extended trips because I prepared and whatever. And I called my mom and I was like, Mom, my tires are flat, but I'm like getting ready to leave for South Carolina. And I opened the car door and it kind of smelled funny, but like not really. She's like, okay, I'll have your stepdad take care of it. And I was like, great, thank you, I love you. And she called me when I got to South Carolina and she's like, Megan, your car is full of maggots. And I'm like, why? Like, did I leave like a chocolate milk container in there? Because doing a lot of dope, I used to drink a lot of chocolate milk to cover the taste, but she was like, no, there is like shit under your car seat and I can't figure out what it is. And I had no idea. And a friend eventually told me that it was rotting meat and that it was this girl. So we had a good laugh about that later. I drove that car until it literally died. It was my Nissan Sentra and I drove the wheels off of that thing. So now you have an idea of where Greg and I were prior to getting arrested. So when we got arrested, we had been having our dealer stay with us. And it was the ultimate hookup because I gave him a free place to stay. He gave us really cheap dope. Prior to him being there, we were probably doing about a half G to a G a day, like a half gram to a gram a day each. When he got there and was living up with us, we were doing minimum of a gram each a day, usually more. And my habit was just out of control, but I was still snorting. So I thought I was okay. It's like this big misconception where you think that it's not as bad if you're snorting, but like it's still bad. And we got arrested, which I have a video about that on my channel. But after getting arrested, things took a sharp turn south. And had no money, no friends. Our house had just been like raided by the police, so nobody wanted to come over. Nobody wanted to talk with us. We were released on our own recognizance, so it obviously looked like we were going to snitch or something. It sucked. I had a few friends that were using that would like let us come over and would help us pick up from the city occasionally, but it was hard. So we were incredibly broke. We went from having all of this dope all the time whenever we needed it to nothing, and we started shooting up. And I mentioned that about my shame of my addiction. I didn't shoot up for very long, but I got bad fast. It got really bad, and I think I'm going to end the video here and pick up with us in Williamsport, which is, those are darkest days. I've mentioned before that we didn't pay bills. We didn't have food. We went to the food bank. We heated our house with an oven in central Pennsylvania in the winter. Like, it was freezing. Our car eventually broke down, so we didn't have any transportation. It was fucking hell. And I'm gonna share that for the next video. So I will talk to you guys later. Bye.